Hey everybody, Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator who just popped out of FSW, Joe DeFalco.
Joe's full of
Hey,
surprises.
there he is.
Hey,
Joe, how's things going, man?
I don't know why my internet, man. You pay the big bucks and this is what you get.
It's not right.
Luckily, today we are joined by someone who does have good internet connection
Oh, don't say
because
that. Reverse going to kick in.
but everything you touch turns to gold, brother. So that's the thing. And that is John Morrison, or as we know him here in Vegas, Johnny MECCA, who's coming back to MECCA this Sunday, the 26th, at the Silver Nugget. How's it going, man?
It's going great. It's well, as always in wrestling, it's been a busy week, month, year, last 20 years, but also a really great last 20 years. And things have been going great lately too.
And before we start, congratulations to Taya for signing with AEW.
Thank you. She is stoked. She flew out a little bit ago to Kansas City for Dynamite tomorrow.
Nice. Nice. Joe, let me ask you, let's start kind of at the beginning. So how did John get on your radar the first time you contacted him and brought him into FSW?
Well, that happened probably, I think, around 2012, maybe.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we had worked a deal with the Casablanca in Mesquite. Lady Chrissy, she used to run the room at Sam's Town, and she got us in there, and then she went over to the Casablanca in Mesquite, and they were looking for some entertainment. I hit her up, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have a show," and blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Awesome, what are they looking to do?" And they were willing to pay us, which was very rare in the wrestling business. And they said, "We want to bring in some names." And I gave them a list. And on the list, they had Kevin Nash, they had John, and these were the guys they wanted. And I remember calling John and I said, "What was your price? Holy crap." And we went to Mesquite and I said, "Hey, this is the price." And they were like, "Okay." And they gave us a check, and everybody got what they wanted to get out of the deal. John came in. He wrestled in our main event against Kenny King. Kevin Nash wrestled Tyshawn Prince, who was our champion at the time. And dealing with John very early on, you could tell that he was genuinely a good dude. It wasn't like, "Hey, I got this fucking booking, I'm going to be nice to this guy." No, this guy was as nice can be. And then we started doing some stuff in Arizona, and Shelton Benjamin and Johnny the Bull, the IWF, was born, and John worked the main event there, and he worked Shelton Benjamin. Still wouldn't put him over, but he still did a great job. And but just dealing with him, he was one of the easiest guys. One of the easiest guys to deal with. In wrestling, you try to get promos, you have these bigger shows, and a lot of guys, they just kind of, "Okay, yeah, I'll get it to you," and you got to remind them 5 times. And there's probably, a very small handful of dudes that I've dealt with that when I hit them up, they actually respond. They do what they say they're going to do for you. And if I had a rate, had a Mount Rushmore of great wrestling people that I've dealt with, John for sure would be on there.
That's a pretty nice compliment coming from, Mr. Joe DeFalco there.
You guys should guys. It's not going to get any better than this for me.
Maybe I'm hoping a little lower rate next time for the plugs.
Oh, I see what you're doing. It's a good move.
Well, let me ask you, coming out of the WWE, you're high profile, you've accomplished a lot at that point. What was it like for you to now take that brand that you have established, bring it onto the independent scene, but to still stay as down to earth as you are, as a person? Because sometimes it's intoxicating and it's hard.
Well, that's a big question. A couple things. One, it's a it's a fine line in pro wrestling. Like if you believe your own hype, if you're a douchebag and you treat people like crap, it's a tough business to be in because
Yeah.
ultimately it's a collaboration and an art form. On the other hand, you have to believe in yourself and have confidence and buy some of your hype because if you don't, then you're see through and you're not interesting on camera.
Right.
So it's a balancing act. And for me, my whole life, my whole career, I've like fallen on the side of being too easy to work with, giving too much, I think, constantly. And in some ways, it's great because I have great relationships. And on the other hand, sometimes it's tough because when you deal with people that just take, you can get like in positions where you're like, shoot, how did I end up here? I gave too much from the get go. So finding that line and walking it while maintaining your integrity, I think, is one of the trickiest things about transitioning from company to company. And in wrestling, the one thing you can say is true is you're as good as your word, and everybody talks. So it
Right.
doesn't matter where I'm going or who I work for. I'm the same everywhere, and I try to like do what I say.
That's a very valid point, and I think a lot of younger wrestlers could learn from that. It's tough when you're coming into a situation where you're walking in and you get a chance to wrestle guys like a Kenny King or Shelton Benjamin, guys who are established, guys that you kind of know a little bit. Is that simpler than, say, going into a match with, guys who might be known in that particular company, but haven't necessarily hit the national level yet for a guy like you? Is it a transition working with little bit younger guys as opposed to guys who are established?
A transition, or is it simpler? Maybe,
Yeah.
but like when you're working for WWE or AEW or any of those big companies, the same thing comes up. I mean, when I started, I was the young guy that was getting mentored by guys, including Shelton. And during my last run with WWE, I was wrestling guys that were 15 years younger than me, and I was the vet, And it just kind of depends on where you are. And simple is an oversimplified term
Right.
because everything is just like case for case, and you can't quantify wrestlers. Like everybody's so individual and original that
Sure.
it's just different for everything.
Joe, so what makes you then pick up on the fact that you like dealing with John and you have been doing Mecca and you start going, hey man, this would be a good idea of giving him the opportunity to be the Mecca champion. How did this kind of evolve into us getting to see Johnny Mecca?
And what happened to the MECCA Championship?
We talk about the MECCA Championship as a curse, which was a curse for me with FSW, but it wasn't a curse for the people who won it. John won it, and right when we were ready to come back after the pandemic, John signed with WWE. So now we had to find a new MECCA champion. And then I decided, hey, you know what? We got Cross. He had gotten released. He's our hometown guy. We're going to have him wrestle Jacob Fatu. He literally wins the MECCA Grand Championship. And then within 2 months, he resigns with the WWE. And the funny thing is, initially, we didn't have a MECCA Grand Championship. We had a trophy that John got when he won.
I remember the
And
trophies.
yes, I think we also used it for like some other gimmick. It
Like
ended
the
up getting
bowling
broken
games.
over somebody's head or something.
As
But
it should.
Chris Bay had a guy who made belts, and he made the new MECCA belt, which is fantastic. But John never got it because the guy had like a breakdown, and we paid for the belt, and it's like, dude, I need the belt or give me the money back. It's been like a year and a half, and then he finally got the belt. So we're like, you know what? We got to put it on somebody. And then we put it on Cross, and then he brought it to the Ric Flair retirement match because he wrestled, I think, Harry Smith, and he had the belt, and he was taking pictures of the meet and greets, and it was great. And then it was like 2 weeks later, he was signed, and he had to mail the belt back. And then it was like, Jesus Christ, this is we've had this champion for years, and we've had like one match, and that's when Cross actually won the belt. So no Mecca champion has ever walked down the aisle with the belt around his waist. So on Sunday, Chris Bay will be the first person to actually wear the belt, but John has never lost the belt.
There's a lot going into this match.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've wrestled Chris several times, but never in a singles match.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the most talented dudes I've seen out there for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to Sunday.
When we crowned the Mecca Grand Champion, we had an 8-man tournament, and then we were going to go to a final 4-way elimination match. And John, I believe, beat Shane Strickland in the first round. Chris Bay beat Scorpio Sky, who had his Apollo Creed outfit that was still one of the best entrances ever. Teddy Hart beat PJ Black, and then Teddy got hurt before the main event. And then Brian Cage beat I forgot who Brian beat. Whoever Brian beat. So they did the 3-way because Teddy Hart was unavailable. And I say it to this day, Chris Bay was known to the FSW fans, but John and Brian went over 100-fold to make Chris Bay the star of that match. And I've always had the ultimate respect for those guys for doing what they did, because they were always trying to make stars. And it's the same thing with Brian Cage. He's always looking to have the best match, and he'll bump his ass off for Eli Everfly. It doesn't matter. He just wants to have the greatest match he can have. I remember he had heat for doing that to Delilah Doom and Eli Everfly at Bar Wrestling, that he got heat from Impact at the time because he was the world champion, and they said it made him look soft. But these guys have come in. They come into our hometown. Same thing with Cross before we had the title. And John put Kevin over, in the middle of the ring. And Kevin, these guys, fortunately, John likes Kevin. John likes Chris Bay. So there's a different dynamic going into that match. It's people who have a lot of respect for each other. So
by and large, I like almost everybody in the wrestling business.
Well, there's a few douchebags we know, but
there's always a few douchebags. Yeah, there's some outliers. But by and large, like I said, it's hard to make it in wrestling if you are one of the outliers, because your reputation spreads and people don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
And to go back on your question, Matt, about when was the realize, I'm not sure. It might have been when Kevin Kleinrock and Ruben did that lucha thing at the Westgate.
Is it like Lucha? No, that was Lucha Expo 1.
Yeah, it should have been called like the Ultimate Disaster. It was like every major superstar from lucha to everybody that was there, and it was like unbelievably poor turnout. But I remember talking to Taya and John, and that's when we got Taya in. She became our first women's champion. Not her first. She became the women's champion.
Right.
And I remember Sami Callihan originally we were going to have as the Mecca Grand Champion. And then I had talked with John, and he was, very interested in, being around a little bit. So it's like we made the switch. And I think to this day, Callahan's a little butthurt that
really?
Yeah.
I got to talk to Sammy about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why he didn't show. He was scheduled to wrestle, and Chris Bay took the spot because Sami Callihan won a 2-day tournament at Warrior Wrestling to win their big thing. And then he hits me up. He's like, "Oh, hey, bro, I'm pretty banged up. I had like 4 matches. Is it cool if I take this one off?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're good. Save the cash."
Oh, dang, that's cool. I didn't know that. I love Sammy, though.
No, yeah, me too. We worked with him last year. It was great.
Yeah.
We love Sami Callihan.
Well, like I said, I'm looking forward to this Sunday. Joe, Matt, really great talking to you guys.
Perfect.
I've got like a second training session coming up, so I'm gonna peace
Absolutely.
out. Stuff.
Absolutely, brother. We appreciate you taking the time, and definitely just go out there and kill it with Chris, because again, first match with him singles. It's going to be fire.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's a great way to open up the show. Why not have that as the curtain jerker, as the MECCA Grand Championship?
Damn right. It's been a hell of a way to get me on that red eye flight back to LA.
Yeah, no, you'll be fine. It's an 11 p.m. flight. You're good.
All right. So not first. We're just live negotiating this time. There's a 9 p.m. that flies into Burbank. Did you see that?
I did not.
Hey,
at the price that I got, boy, I wish I would have looked at that one. Maybe it was cheaper. I could have got you on a really, really inexpensive flight at 5:50 a.m.
Woo.
So,
all right. Well,
hey, you need a ride from the airport?
Let's talk about it later.
All right, sounds good. Go do your training.
All right.
Train for bed.
All right, Johnny. Take care of yourself, man. All right, Joe. So obviously we know that that is set up to be a phenomenal main event, or we might see Johnny Curtain Jerker. So
that for no doubt is definitely the main event of the night.
So speaking of, at this point, since it's a couple days away, what is going to be the opening match of the show?
The Scramble. Right now, all I have penciled in is match number 1 and match number 8. And always got to start off with a good scramble. We got the 15-year-old, the young prodigy Bodie, Remy Marcel. We got Juicy. We got Jacob Austin Young. And we just added Bret the Threat, making his MECCA debut.
Nice. How is that for you when you get to see a guy like Bret finally break into a MECCA? Because it's not an easy thing to get onto a MECCA card.
No, it is not. And, through the dynamics of that scramble, you want that wrestler that people may not like to bring a dynamic, because everybody loves Bodie. Everybody loves Remy Marcel, Jacob Austin Young. Juicy's got his fans. So having that pure heel in there, working against the odds against guys that he has had numerous opportunities with, when you're talking Bodie and Remy Marcel. So, there's a lot going on that way. And I feel for what we're looking for in that match, again, there were other options. There was a Devin Reno. There was a Class, Jordan Cruz. I just felt that as the homegrown guy that Bret the Threat is, who's worked very hard to get to a very good level, that this would be an opportunity for him to shine. Because in all honesty, there's been a lot of storylines going on. And again, no fault of anybody's, but, Bret has taken other bookings and hasn't been around all the time. And when things were being set up, unfortunately, this is the opportunity he's going to get. And hopefully it could lead into something, story-wise down the line.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and should be an exciting scramble match. With actually, one of the things I have to give you credit for is that when you look at the scrambles you typically put together, there is not one person you could point to say that that's pretty much the clear favorite to win the scramble match.
Are you saying we do not have the weakest link?
Yeah, exactly. It's phenomenal, because look at that as a fan watching that. Then you're investing. Plus, I like the fact that you have a number of crowd favorites in that match, because then that really makes me want to choose. Well, am I really more of a Bodie guy, or am I more of a Jacob Austin Young guy?
Right. And it also makes a guy like Remy, who is kind of maybe mentored, tag teamed with Bodie, the young kid, he's going to have to go at it with him a little bit. And, is it going to be the wily vet, or is it going to be, the young up and comer? Because, this is Bodie's probably first main card Mecca. He's been in a couple, I would think at least one pre-show match, but this is his first opportunity to be into the bright lights. So, let's see how he does. And recently he teamed with Jacob Austin Young. Right. So there's a lot of love there, but, love doesn't matter when it's a 5-way scramble and you're looking for a victory that may be able to catapult you into something.
Now, just thinking about this image, Bodie goes down on the mat and Juicy goes down on top of him. Will we not see Bodie at all if Juicy covers him?
Well, I'm wondering if we're going to see that top rope moonsault from Juicy. Flattening. That alone's worth the price of admission to see if Bodie's going to come out of that match as a buttermilk pancake.
Oh, man. Again, Fight TV, you can catch this $14.99, I believe. And it is a 5 o'clock Pacific time show. So if you're on the East Coast, 8 o'clock Eastern time. With your women's championship match, what is your expectations in putting together Johnny Robbie and Viva Van, and knowing that they have a little history? I think they might even be wrestling in Arizona the night before. So, there's going to be some animosity going into this match from whoever loses that night before. Is that something that you're looking forward to seeing, if the two of them just bring that next level out of each other for this particular event?
Well, you got to understand they have a lot of matches that they've wrestled each other in, and the win-loss record is pretty similar. So it's a pretty evenly matched matchup. And the thing is, most people say, hey, you know what? It's a first-time matchup. There's a good chance that they don't know each other that well. Well, I would expect a superior match, being that they have been in the ring together so many times that they know each other's strengths. They know each other's weaknesses. So this should be a great back and forth matchup between, two of, say, the top 5 women on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And, Johnny Robbie is that up and comer. She's what Viva may have been a year and a half, 2 years ago when we first used her. But as I said, I think Johnny is further along than where Viva was at the same time frame. Right. And, it's an important match for Johnny Robbie, because right now Viva's considered one of the top women wrestlers not signed, period. So, and we're fortunate to have Maserati, Rochelle Riveter, Johnny Robbie, and, a few others that, that we're looking at bringing in. So, this is a big matchup. And, the winner of this AEW weekend is going to be awfully busy. AEW with GCW in town, Alley Catch is going to be here. So Billy Starks is going to be here. So there's no doubt that they are going to have matches on an FSW influence show, whether it's FSW versus GCW, whether it's just an FSW show, or, whether Joey wants to, run another show that he's made mention of. The Observer will be here in San Antonio, where I've already gotten Alice Blair and Maserati and Rochelle's trying to work out a schedule. So Ed generally runs a show with a lot of good female talent on it. So there's going to be a lot of work going on that weekend, and we're still preparing it. We got the Future Legends. We've signed up a bunch of people for that. But, again, the main focus is MECCA. We got 8 matches, and, be able to, this is the best MECCA. You know what? All the MECCAs are really good, depending on the different styles that you're looking for. In the past, maybe we lacked some of that indie buzz that we're bringing with Effie against Jay Vidal. Right. That's a big match for Jay Vidal. He looks at Effie as, being very proud and excited that he got to be working WrestleMania weekend in the past for the gay brunch. So now it's Effie is in Jay Vidal's home court. So that's going to be a little different. We got a monster 4-way tag, bringing back the Unguided for this one because we think they fit perfectly in with the Gates of Agony and TBD and Tito and Shay, the Wolves Zaddies. Then, and then we've seen the promo wars going on, the faction against faction, Lights, Camera Faction and Team Filthy. And, for anybody who knows any history of FSW, the 1%, Royce Isaacs and Jarrell Nelson, they were put together because of me. I put them together.
Right.
I said I need a tag team. I've said it before. We had 4 or 5 tag teams go to China, and we lost our tag team division. And I said, guys, you guys are kind of, not that they were floundering, but they were kind of in random spots with no direction because I didn't have any for them. But I thought I could have a direction for them as a tag team. And these were 2 guys that all of a sudden became workout partners, best friends, traveled together, wrestling all over the country together, and hooked up with Tom Lawler, who went back into wrestling and started by training back at FSW. So there's a lot, people could look at them as, oh yeah, New Japan team, whatever. They're FSW motherfuckers. Tom Lawler didn't start wrestling again till he wrestled at FSW and started training again after the UFC career kind of went awry. And Royce and Jarrell became 2-time FSW tag team champions. And then they went over and they, would get to wrestle guys like SoCal Uncensored and all the best tag teams and won titles everywhere, Defy, PCW. And these guys really took and ran. You want to talk about, those guys are probably the most that you could say ran with something, because these were 2 guys that barely even knew each other.
Yeah.
And it's no different with Tito and Che. Tito and Che were Santino guys, but Tito was teaming up with Rico Dynamite all the time. But we had used Che, and I felt they would be a good tag team. And all of a sudden, they're the tag team. So, and Unguided, I had told them beforehand, man, you guys would be a great tag team. I put them together for Conan in AAA. So they obviously got together on their own, but it was after, titles were lost that they were put together. So it's almost the Joe DeFalco Tag Team Invitational, because Toa never worked for anybody before he worked for me. Man, I'm Barry Horowitzing right now. I'm all I needed to do was put Juicy in that match if I didn't have Khan, and it would have been truly the Joe DeFalco Tag Team Invitational.
I was just going to say, there was only one man in that match that you can't claim anything, because this is, if I'm not mistaken, Khan's first time wrestling for FSW, right?
Yes, it is. And we had tried to get him a couple of months ago for the Against All Odds Rumble, where we had Toa on the show. And, one option at that time was the Gates of Agony against TBD, for the tag team titles. And then instead we went with, which was actually before, I guess it was against all odds, was Carlito and Masters. So, TBD, another team.
Yeah.
I basically forgot about that. I put them together. That they did the thing in the Halloween gimmick battle royal where they acted like the APA, and it was like, man, these guys got some great chemistry. If the opportunity arises, and it arose, and I put them in, and they gelled up until recently, but that the tag teams is what I've created because I was a fan of tag team wrestling. And most people, when they train to wrestle, they aren't like, oh man, I can't wait to be in a tag team. No, you want to be a star. You can't be a star. It's we and not me. So, a lot of times it's hard to convince somebody. And that's why the respect goes out to Royce and Jarrell, that they were willing to initially take a step back and try to work as a tag team. But the dividends paid off huge because look at them now. Right. And that's one thing I can't take credit for because I've put numerous tag teams together that shit the fucking bed. And why'd they shit the bed? Because they didn't want to be a tag team. They wanted to be on the show. So they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. And they would train at our school, but they would never work together. Like, dudes, put some tag team maneuvers together. Do some things that stand you out as a tag team. That's why I'm a fan of the Regulators. They come out, they're kind of flashy, they do cool moves, but they work together. They're not working as two singles. They're not two singles guys in a tag. Right. And that's what I like about tag team wrestling. And I've been a fan, it's funny on my radio show or the radio show I do, they had Bobby Fulton on the Fantastics on. And he's like, oh, you got any questions? You want to talk to Bobby? I'm like, no, not really. I hated those motherfuckers. I hated the Fantastics. I hated the Rock and Roll Express. Not that I thought the Fantastics were the Rock and Roll Express light, and I didn't like them because I loved the Midnight Express, from not Dennis Condrey version, but Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton with Jim Cornette. That was my favorite tag team. Then the Hart Foundation. That was my favorite tag team of all time. So, I was always into, tag teams and watching, the British Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation in matches. And when the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express and the, Arn and Tully, the Horsemen. And I remember even the Ding Dongs that I liked and the New Blood, the New Breed. I remember they were trying to make them a new coming tag team, but one guy got fucked up. So I've always been the fan of a tag team. I've always been fan of managers because there's a lot of guys who have everything. They have the it factor, except they can't cut a promo and they can't talk themselves out of a fucking, paper box, whatever it's called. And, a guy like Bobby Heenan would come along, and I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys in the Heenan R family wouldn't have gotten those main event matches with Hulk Hogan if they had to do it on their own.
Yeah.
As good as Hercules and Power and Glory, another great tag team that I liked a lot, they kind of got put together and they had a lot of success. But Hercules, for a while, he was a big time guy in the heavyweight division. So, and I love tag teams. And that's why on this match, my kid was like, oh, the young guy that's kind of weird in there. It's like, yeah, because we have 3 monster tag teams. You want to talk about the bruiserweights. Man, they're the polar opposite. And that's what we need is that 4th team to go around and fly around and high flying moves and big, off the top rope watching Vandegrift and I'm excited about that 4-way. That tag match is a big deal. There's so much on the card that can possibly steal the show. Gregory Sharp and TJP. How can that fucking be bad? It's virtually impossible for that to be bad.
That is going to be the combination. Well, basically, let's be honest, it's a New Japan match essentially. I mean, the way those guys work, I mean, that's if you really love that style, that mix of a little bit of high flying and some strong style in there, those two are just gonna kill each other.
Total truth in this one. Gregory Sharp was pissed off at me, a couple years ago when we had the MECCA, and I remember he sends me a Facebook message, and it's like, "I want TJP," and it was like, bro, it's already set. Douglas James won the Limitless tournament. He was getting the match. Well, I want that match. And it's like, well, I'm sorry you want the match. So 2 years or 3 years later, he's getting that match. So he's going to go out. But the thing is, 3 years ago, nobody would have been clamoring for the match the way they are today.
Right.
So, sometimes good things come to those who wait. Gregory Sharp finally got over the hump. He has been one of our MVPs because we've had a few of the. I don't know if I have enough hands to count the MVPs of the guys who've been with us that have reinvented themselves, and over 10, 12, 14 years, they are still main guys. They're not in that position to be, hey, all right, we'll throw you on the card. You can put over one of those young kids. These guys are fighting and scrapping. And, it's easy to look at the heavyweight championship and say, man, there's 10, 12 guys that if they had that match, I can believe as the heavyweight champion. And that's the thing that shows how great our roster is, from beginning to end. So again, we got to go look at the MECCA and look at the FSW guys, or guys that I use on numerous occasions that we don't have from MECCA. A Cutthroat Cody's not on MECCA. An Eli Everfly, who's ready to come back, just didn't really have something. Brandon Gatson, who always talk about. Jordan Oasis, who's had a big year. Yeah. Talk about the tag teams because we went with the 4. So the Sky Highs of the world, don't get in that match. So, there's a lot of talented people. The heavyweight champions wrestling in a 6-man with the tag team champions.
Yeah.
But nobody's looking at like, oh my God, man, they're getting buried. No, they're working Team Filthy. It's a great fucking match. And it's
for you, let me ask you about that. How do you see it now with the fact that they work themselves and obviously Ice has become the champion, but you look at Fresco, you look at Watson, you look at what Braxton's done. They leveled up. This past year, they've really took a step forward. You have to be very impressed with the fact that you could look at your roster and go, you know what? I can match those guys up now with a Team Filthy.
Yeah. To be honest with you, when we were talking about the last MECCA, they weren't on it. And we ended up getting changed, but we did more like a Murder Inc. with Bateman, Funny Bone, and Bateman, Funny Bone, and Cody against Team Filthy. But because of the issues that arose, that ended up not happening.
Right.
And Limelight ended up teaming up with Lawler, and we did a tag match. But you would think if you're going to book a 6-man, but again, I didn't feel that they had earned that position to take away from other people just because they've been around, just because they're doing well. as I said, there's always pecking orders. And, you know, in a pecking order, there were times that the tag team champions didn't get on MECCA, and the team they actually beat for the tag titles were the ones who got on the MECCA because they were a younger team. TBD missed the MECCA and a big show where we put Death Proof in there. So just because you're the champion doesn't guarantee you something. So, you know, I do what I think is best for the MECCA show. And, you know, in this situation, I think faction versus faction, that's got a lot of great appeal, man. You know, I posted it, or Jake posted it, and we literally got shit tons of views on the Twitter once that match was posted. Yeah. And more so than a lot of other matches that you may have thought would have more. So, you know, again, it's a Joe DeFalco show. We got 8 matches. We got a 5-man scramble. We got a 4-way tag. We got a triple threat match, the late edition for Kenny, who was scheduled to wrestle Sam Adonis in February at the MECCA until he got snowed in.
Right.
And we've been wanting to do Hammerstone and Adonis for a while. And now we basically made it, you know, a triple threat match of, you know, 3 major national promotions. Yeah. You know, we have the MLW champion. We got a guy in AAA who just won some big trophy and tournament, which guarantees him some big things. And Kenny King. You know, I couldn't tell you what the Rey de Reyes victory got Sam Adonis, but I know it got him a lot of notoriety, and that's what's important.
Right.
So, you know, there's another interesting matchup as Hammerstone, first time back, you know, so we're excited. It's his first match back since losing the FSW heavyweight championship that he held for longer than pretty much anybody from longevity wise as a 3-time champion.
Yeah.
So, you know, hey, you never know. I could get a call that says, hey, bro, I'm in Vegas this weekend. You think you can use me? And I can say, sure, Matt Hardy. If you're here in town, I'll figure something out.
You know, he is going to be in town come AEW weekend. And from what I have heard, there's a little conflict on this, but I think Tony Khan is allowing some of the guys who are not working anything else to fly back out. So, you know, they're going to have that downtime in between the taping on Wednesday and the pay-per-view on Sunday. I mean, are you going to try to get a Hardy?
I don't know. You know. Maybe can I get Jungle Boy for the Future Legend tournament?
Well, at this point, you probably have a better chance of paying Matt's rate than probably what Jungle Boy's asking now. The way that he's
we're tight. You know, he's good friends with Royce Isaacs. Royce brought him to FSW the couple times that we had him.
That's right. Yeah. When you know we're talking MECCA, and we're talking AEW weekend, which is in May. When MECCA's over and before we hit that May weekend, how much is going on for you in, you know, the rest of March and through April?
Well, March, there's only going to be 4 days left, Matt. So what do you think I'm going to do? Run a Tuesday show this week? Tuesday in Texas? You know?
Hey, if you can get Taker and throw the belt on him for one night, sure.
Yeah. We have 2 big shows coming up. We got a High Octane on April 14th, and we're having a big show April 30th. It's going to be at the FSW Arena, but it's basically going to be treated kind of like a pay-per-view show, Day of Reckoning. You know, we have things in place that we're looking forward to, and I'm pretty sure almost every title is going to be on the line. So, you know, that's going to be a big event on April 30th. And then we're going to figure out what we're going to do probably, you know, the first weekend in May. and then we go to the AEW weekend. And it was a blessing that they decided not to do the taping on Friday, which kind of hurt us a little bit. And then we had venue issues to where with the pay-per-view on Sunday and Rampage on Friday, Saturday's the GCW day. Well, now Saturday we couldn't get the Silver Nugget or the Silverton or anywhere. So we were kind of stuck. So now that Friday has opened up as the main day, and Saturday's the main day. So we got the Future Legends on Thursday. Still figuring out, talking with John, see if he wanted to do something here in Vegas. We got Friday. Pretty sure GCW will be announcing any time soon, probably after Mania. So they're going to be out here. I already know they're going to be out here. So they're figuring it out. Friday probably the best option. So Saturday, the Observer, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, they'll be doing a 10 a.m. at the FSW Arena. Ed will be running a 12 o'clock, the Ed in San Antonio Women's Show, 12 o'clock on the Saturday. Hopefully we will have a partner run a 3 to 5-ish type show on Saturday. FSW, GCW, we've talked a little. We have not finalized anything. But the idea initially would have been to do it Sunday at 12 noon like we did SummerSlam. But now that Saturday at our arena is wide open, why wouldn't we take it? Which now also leaves open a Sunday afternoon. If Joey wants to do something or somebody else wants to do something, then we can figure it out. But the idea is Thursday, hopefully 2 shows. Friday, hopefully 2 shows at the Nugget. Saturday, a Q&A, which would be the 5th event. Ed at the 6th event. 3 o'clock, a 7th event. 7:30, 8 o'clock, our event. Seeing if Joey Janela wants to do a midnight show or Effie wants to do a brunch the next day. So we're talking 10, 11 shows, and that's not even counting AEW, the 2 events. But that's a minimum of 9 to 12 events between Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So, bring your pocketbooks.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. It's a great. You have to give credit for the wrestling fans who come in for the AEW weekend here in Vegas because of the fact that they are willing to spend. This is, one of their big weekends, and it's just phenomenal to see people, take that much enthusiasm and put that much money into independent wrestling. Considering that they're already putting the money into what they're going to be seeing with AEW. So that's phenomenal to see that kind of support coming in from all over, not only this country, but I think this year is the first time since the first Double or Nothing, right, that it's been now open for most of the countries overseas to come in too, correct?
Yeah, but you got to understand that this one is going to be very interesting because last year WrestleMania was in Texas. So you didn't have a lot of that West Coast feel. People went out. Of course, they come from all over the country. But now, how are the people from Vegas, Arizona, California, Washington, when WrestleMania has a million things going on?
Right.
And now we're talking 6 weeks later on the same coast, except in Vegas, which is a 4-hour drive. It's going to be interesting to figure out if these people are going to be able to afford going to do everything, which, again, it could take a big hit on us because everybody's putting their eggs in the basket for May. But, hey, how about all the thousands of dollars people just spent in March? They're also going to AEW. So are they going to have funds? Are they going to have room? maybe I talk with everybody and say, hey, let's run a big special deal for general admission for all the shows,
Sure.
things like that, to where, breaking it down to $10 or $15 a show may seem crazy, but if you're doing all those shows, hey, you know what, man, I can go to 10 shows for $150.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, if you miss 2, you don't care.
Right.
Because you're still getting all this. So it's going to be interesting to see the packages and all the other stuff, because again, GCW is going to do their own thing. But when we did it last year as the Full Tilt, we did offer, a Full Tilt package that included the events that happened at Silver Nugget. So we had us and Revolver, Black Label Pro, GCW, and the Revolver show. So I believe we did the 4 events there. And instead of, it was a good deal because GCW probably charged $40 at the door, general admission. It might have been $30, but I think you got the 4 tickets for $100 or $80 or something like that. Yeah. So, people took advantage of that, save a few dollars, because they sure drank well. They sure lined up for Matt Cardona and everybody in that GCW, those lines. I couldn't believe the line from Matt Cardona. So those people were coming, they, cash in hand. And nowadays, who's got the square? Who's using the credit? GCW, they're running later that night. And earlier the day, they're doing a fan fest for AEW that just to walk in the door was $40-$45. Yeah. And the low card guy was a $25, photo.
Yeah.
And the more expensive, I knew they did like a Jeff and Matt Hardy, where it was probably $80-$100. But there were lines in the Elite and the Bucks. Yeah. So people, it's like NASCAR,
Yeah.
Many years ago, NASCAR, they're a bunch of rednecks. They're trailer park. They got no money. And eventually, everybody realized that wasn't true. The crazy thing is, people who don't like wrestling, that's still their perception of wrestling. Oh, poor trailer park trash. They got no money. It's like, you do know they spent like $800 for front row at WrestleMania because they got a chair with it. And they went to the meet and greet, or the people that are going to pay $500 or $300 to take a picture with the Undertaker at his show on Friday night.
Did you say $800 for a front row WrestleMania? Because if you got an $800 seat for front row for WrestleMania this year, I'll gladly buy it from you.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know. I was going to say like at least 1,000, 1,500, but then I'm like, nah, it can't be that much.
It's they I think, from what I remember, just having a conversation recently, some of those front rows were 3,000, and that's retail.
Well, that's the markup from the people because it's
no. That was retail. That was the WWE price of those front row tickets, $3,000 for the seats. So they definitely have figured out the way to make those prices creep up, and people are still paying them, which is remarkable. But speaking of WrestleMania, since we know now that she's going to be on the card for the Saturday morning show for NXT, Zoe's getting that chance at that ladder match for the NXT Women's Championship. Are we finally going to see them pull the trigger?
I'm not sure. Are they positive it's going to be? Because I just saw that Roxanne Perez got cleared.
Ooh.
I just read that.
No? Wow.
And it was a pretty reputable site, WrestlingInc.com.
Huh.
So I don't know. That whole story has been very, very odd.
Well, from what I read today, one of the stories I read is that there was some other type of issue going on. Wasn't disclosed what the issue is, but it was used as a cover. The angle was used as a cover story to protect whatever that was that she's dealing with. So if she did get cleared, then that's going to be interesting, because would she be in the match, or I don't know. Let's compare two very talented young women, Roxanne Perez or Zoe Stark. Who would you say is the more complete talent right now?
Well, of course, I'm going to be prejudiced, and I'm going to pick the person who I know and I train with, and her famous trainer husband has put me over numerous times, Tom Howard. Of course, I'm going to say. So, yeah, I'm reading it here. It says Roxanne Perez reportedly cleared to return to action in WWE NXT. So, because,
you know what?
But it's the same thing with the Bray Wyatt story, that, it was creative. Oh, wait, it's not creative. He's having some health issues. Right. Because it was hard for me to believe. It was like, how did he get hurt physically? He's only had one match in 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. There'll be qualifying matches so far. The two, Yeah, it didn't really say anything other than the reports have been vague. And who knows? So I guess probably in the next week or so, we would probably know more. I hate when that happens. I remember when they stripped CM Punk and he's gone from the company and they have a tournament. And before the tournament is even over, CM Punk's back in the company. It's like, oh, okay, so why isn't he still the champ?
Right.
And I believe it was like when Rey Mysterio may have gotten it or something for like a week or whatever it was. I don't remember. Yeah. But I understanding, it's hard these days and you got to blur the lines. But there's so much information out there that, I don't know how I feel about the fact, like, okay, in the past, WWE wouldn't release anything. Now because of social media, they feel they have to come up with a story, whether it's real or fake. But they feel that it's necessary to go on Twitter and it's necessary, or to comment because Braun Strowman said something. They have to now cover it up, or, hey, let's make them a tag team now because he was burying guys like Ricochet.
Yeah.
And it's like now they're reacting to things instead of just doing what they feel is best. Like with the Bloodline, they did what they did, and despite everybody wanting Sami Zayn to win, they understood that Roman Reigns has to go into WrestleMania as the champion. As great as the Sami Zayn story is, and it was. And that's not easy to say about the WWE product at all. Right. And, now all of a sudden everything I'm seeing is they're comparing Batista and Triple H to Sepha and Roman Reigns. And Sepha's going to be the guy, not Jay or Jimmy. It's going to be Sepha who's going to turn and take out Roman Reigns. And it's like, well, at this point, if Cody Rhodes beats him, does it matter? It's the guy who knocks the guy off the shelf.
Well,
not the second guy who knocks him off the shelf.
But the question is does Seth basically cost him the title in some way? And then, you go from there. But
I hope not. I hope that the WrestleMania main event of the final day doesn't come down to something like that. And again, it could, because in the old days, WrestleMania wrapped everything up, and now everything is the Raw after WrestleMania, and all of a sudden you got 5 rematches from what you just saw, and paid $60 on pay-per-view to see the same rematches over and over. So,
well, you don't have to pay $60 anymore. You Just pay that Peacock $5.
There you go. I got an offer in the mail today. I took the other offer, put it in the wife's name because it was $1.99 a month. I had to get commercials, but whatever. $1.99 a month. And they actually beat the price. They sent me to my email because I had it first. And I was like, I'm paying $9.99 a month. Why wouldn't I pay $1.99 a month? So they were offering me Peacock for the year for $19.99.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I haven't seen that.
That would save me $5.01 over the year. But I got to check because if it's $19.99 and it's no commercials, then it's really worth it.
Well, see, that's what I think that's what it should be, right? Because if you're really trying to get people in like that and hook them in, yeah, wouldn't you give it $20, no commercials for the full year? But
yeah, it's funny. I got rid of cable and the DirecTV, and it's like I got Paramount and Showtime because you put them together so you get a package deal. Got the Hulu. I got the Netflix. I got the Peacock. I just got Stars for $20 for 6 months. Got to catch up on my Power Ghost Book 2 and the Raising Kanan and stuff like that. I got Apple TV. Apple TV's got a lot of good stuff. Like, I can't believe how much TV I literally watch. I got like 20 streaming services.
Which is hysterical because then you start adding this stuff up and it's like, oh, so essentially it's cable again. But
it's cable, but it's stuff that I want to watch.
Right. It's a la carte, which cable never figured out that was the way to do it.
And I couldn't get cable and get Paramount Plus. I couldn't get cable and get Apple TV. So in reality, who really cares? How much can you watch and pay for the History Network? I guess if you're into it, but I wouldn't pay for it.
Well, Joe,
and I got Disney.
Disney, of course, because the Hulu. Yeah. And did you get the ESPN Plus too?
I did now. Because the price, Disney, it was crazy. I got Disney for like 3 years when it first came out beforehand, and they offered this deal that was like unbelievable. Right. Like literally unbelievable. I think it was like $4 a month or $3 a month if you paid for it for the 3 years. Yeah. ESPN Plus is garbage. It's like I couldn't get into the NFL games. Yay, they got the XFL games. So I go to sit and watch the XFL games and curse at how bad the fucking quarterbacks and the coaches are. I'm watching the Vegas team. MK's at the game. So I'm watching it. There's literally 50-something seconds on the clock. Okay? 50 seconds. And it's second down. They got one timeout left. Okay? He throws on second down. Incomplete. Okay? Now it's third down. He runs. They stop him. They call a timeout. There's 48 seconds left. If they would have ran the play, there would have been 8 seconds left. Okay? So now, the brainiac that Rod Woodson, great NFL football player, right. They kick a field goal to go up 6 with 40 seconds to go. Rod Woodson accepts the penalty. It's still fourth down. So he goes for it on 4th and 2. What does he do? He throws again, incomplete. Now, he gives them the ball only down by 3 with 40 seconds to go. And, of course, the clock stops on a first down, incomplete pass, whatever. They still won the game. But it was like, man, you gave them every opportunity. Now, first off, the game would have been over. You would have had 8 seconds left, and they would have had to score a touchdown. Instead, right. They had 44 seconds, and they had to score a touchdown, but you took the penalty. So now you only had them to have a kick a field goal to tie the game to go into overtime. Like,
right.
I cannot believe that there was nobody on the sidelines that's like, I can't believe MK didn't jump out of the stands and say, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, a pee-wee football coach wouldn't make that mistake. I swear I could coach that team better than he could.
Oh no. Oh, here we
Atrocious.
go.
It is
Boy.
atrocious.
We're gonna have to get Rod Woodson to the FSW arena.
Well, what's funny, because MK hit me up after I told him, like, this is the worst fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I don't even like watching it. It was like, it's on. Let me watch it. He's like, hey, just so you know, there's a Rod Woodson meet and greet on Friday. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't pay 2 cents for that guy's meet and greet. Like, is he going to tell me how horrible the coach he is? That guy's blown like 4 leads in the last 3 minutes because of his stupidity.
Hey,
like, they could have got the first pick in the XFL draft and got Johnny Manziel next year.
Yeah. Hey, that would have been or they could have gone with Johnny MECCA and brought it home right now, as we're going to bring it home with MECCA coming up this Sunday, the 26th.
Yes. With Johnny, the man of 9 million names, as his wife said.
Hey, being that Taya is now with AEW, there's a good chance we'll see Johnny Dark. So that would be interesting, huh?
Johnny Dark debuted last year on Dark. Because he was in town and we were talking. He actually went and trained with Bay at the facility.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, we have a tight-knit acquaintanceship, I would call it. Because I wouldn't call it a friendship. It isn't like, hey, John, you want to come over for dinner, type of thing like that. But he's always, as I said, super cool to talk to,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when I told him 20, 30 minutes, he knew exactly when it was 20 after. He slid right into it on got to go training.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good. And we appreciate him coming on. And, the match with him and Bay is going to be spectacular. So if you can come down to the Silver Nugget, get your tickets now.
Please come down.
Yeah, you can get tickets at the door. Again, it's 5 p.m. Pacific Coast time start. Pre-show starting at 4:30.
Well, we're actually gonna have a pre-show match. That's all we're really gonna do.
Yeah.
So we will have a pre-show match starting at probably 4:40 because we want to make sure, that way there isn't any issues as to why the show didn't start on time. Because Fight TV expects the feed for the main show to start at 5. So
yeah. So again, order it on Fight TV if you can't get down to the Silver Nugget, or if you are out of town. It's going to be a solid show. We've covered all the matches and got you all ready. So all there is now is to cross your fingers that everyone's travel and everyone's,
Yeah, maybe we can get a 70-degree day next week.
It's it'd be great.
Ridiculous.
But Joe, 70-degree day on a Sunday. Are people going down to the show, or are they now, staying outside?
Of course they're going to the show. I just want a nice day. If you weren't going to the show, it don't matter if it was 70 or 50. You weren't going to the show.
There you go. That's why you're the businessman, and I'm not.
Everybody wants them, have a million different reasons why things are. Nobody really knows. All of a sudden we think we have a light show, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, we got to get more chairs. Like, why? I don't know. Because sometimes it feels like walk up is terrible and we're relying on the thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, even at the last show, it was like, man, I was watching the tape of the very first match. And it was Remy in class. And I'm looking, and you could see the light coming in because it's still 5 o'clock. It was still light enough at the Nugget, but you could see because the chairs are white, so it looks crappy. But there was like, wow, man, there's a lot of empty seats. And all of a sudden, you're looking at match 4, and it's like, wow, there's no empty seats. So, it's crazy. So get there. We got some front rows still available, not a ton. We probably got upwards of 10 or 15. So we try to keep them for our regulars, but we've learned we've kept them the last minute, and it's cost us. So once we get there, we them and hope you're going to come by and pay for them. So,
Yeah.
The world, if you're a person who comes to all our shows and has never had that issue, well, then I'll save that ticket for you. But there's a bunch of them who like, oh yeah, I can't make it, and that doesn't help us. This show's real expensive. As much as I love Johnny MECCA, he's not cheap. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's a good way to end it today, because if you think about it, again, supporting FSW, supporting independent wrestling is a very important thing, and one of the reasons is because of talent like John Morrison. He's got to get paid what he's worth, and to see a guy like that up close, to see him wrestle a guy like Chris Bay, and also that means the world to Chris Bay to wrestle a guy like John Morrison. So, you're helping out these guys, and supporting independent wrestling is a very important thing, and it ain't making Joe DeFalco any more richer. That's for sure.
For sure.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.